Madam President Rajavi, ladies and gentlemen, dear members of the National Council of Resistance, thank you very much for allowing me to attend to this very important World Forum. Much has been said. Nevertheless, I would like to start my thoughts by saying I've been listening to President Rajavi very carefully. Madam President, thank you very much for your words that I consider as European a wake-up call for Europe. I consider a wake-up call for the international community as a whole. Why? Because during the years, myself as the foreign minister or vice president of European Commission, many of my colleagues in European Union, in America, in North America and elsewhere have been having contact with representatives of Iranian regime, sometimes so-called reformists, sometimes so-called conservatives. I can tell you from my direct experience, no differences at all. I found always one thing: the Iranian negotiators are very good gamblers. They are very capable to try to hide to their counterparts while sitting in the table like European councils of ministers or United Nations Assembly. They are capable to try to hide what they are doing at the expenses of the Iranian people. This is a clear point, and this is why it's so important what you, Madam President Rajavi, just said. What you have in your heart, in your mind, a country that is rich in nature, but now is tremendously poor. It is poor economically. It is poor because when you don't enjoy non-negotiable fundamental rights, that country is extremely poor. Because the basic rights, right to be free to express the opinion, right to women and men to be equally respected, right to profess a religion, these are basic rights. And your country, your beautiful country, is tremendously poor. This is why it's so important that you repeat your message, that the National Council repeats a message which is not only of, I would say, hope. I think you will succeed. I'm sure sooner the better, but you will succeed in getting freedom and liberty for your country. But it's important now to open the eyes of the international community. When the Iranian negotiators try to regain ground to bring on the table the European Union negotiators or the 5+1 member countries, they do, and this is my deep conviction, only because they used the nuclear deal as a leverage for a recognition of their role in the region. They want to be recognized politically. And this is the point where they should fail. They cannot be recognized a viable partner, a viable negotiator. Nuclear is only one element of a general number of issues. And the issues brings me with my mind to the 30,000 political prisoners, to the executions, to the death penalties, and to the deprivation of fundamental freedoms. There is not only the nuclear negotiation. And if we fall in the trap to sit around the table and to negotiate again, we just give the regime a legitimation, a recognition of their role. And their role is unfortunately also the one to destabilize the whole of Middle East, especially now, after the election of Mr. Raisi. There was not an election, it was a designation from the Supreme Guide, and frankly speaking, if this was the designation, in my personal opinion, this was a message of weakness, not a message of strength, because designating Mr. Raisi means the regime is going towards more repression because it's losing completely its reputation. It is a clear point in international relations. If a given regime is losing its reputation, it has to increase repression, to silence the free voice. Fortunately, you are a free voice speaking through a network worldwide. But you have to help people of Iran to regain ground and to be able to express their free voice inside Iran. And when people talk about sanctions, again, in my personal opinion, sanctions are not affecting the free people of Iran, because lifting sanctions would represent only to give more money to the regime, not to give more money to the free people of Iran, because it happened recently during the moment where the sanction had been lifted. What was the result? Poverty, despair, no freedom, exactly the same of the period of time where the sanctions are in force. So also we have to clarify this point, because it is very often used as a regime propaganda. You want the sanction to affect people. It's not the people to be affected. It is the regime. They are the finances of regime. It is the corruption of regime. It is the unbalanced distribution of richness among the people which is affected by giving more money to the regime. What to do about this increasing threat represented by an aggressive regime and led by a designated president that should be held accountable for having been responsible for thousands and thousands of people executed, people being political prisoners. First of all, I would say, thanks to your wake-up call, my colleagues in Europe should seriously consider not to sitting whatsoever around the same table with the Iranian dignitaries. This would be a clear message. I cannot recognize persons who have, by trying to sign an agreement, bloody hands. We have been doing concerning other regimes. We have to be very frank, very strict in respecting our Constitution, the Charter of Fundamental Rights of European Union. Having been myself also Commissioner for Fundamental Rights, I've been made aware in that capacity of the tragedy involving human rights in Iran. First message, Europe, don't sit together around the same table to negotiate. Don't legitimize, don't recognize the legitimacy as a serious interlocutor of a country whose president deserves to be held accountable, thanks to an investigation which is, I would say, encouraged and promoted, but still did not become a reality. So this is the first message. The second message, Europe and the West should be absolutely clear on Middle East. Let's be clear on destabilizing role of Iranian regime in the whole of the Middle East. In the countries like Syria, by infiltrating the Guard, the Pasdaran Guard, to the Iraq, to destabilize the whole region. And this is another element to be taken into consideration by those who believe that maybe one day Iran could be negotiating with Arab countries. This is not absolutely the truth. It's impossible. It is, again, the play of the gamblers. They try to hide what is really behind the scene. Behind the scene is terror, is deprivation of rights. In conclusion, I think what you are doing now is not only a wake-up call, and the previous speakers already highlighted a number of very important points, but it is an appeal for respecting universal rights. These are not only the legitimate rights of the Iranian people. These are universal rights. A given country does not deserve to be considered a normal partner, a viable country, if the complete denial of universal rights becomes the normality. This is a point, this is the added value of your struggle for rights. This is the message to us, to Europe, to the West, to those that consider your struggle for rights a struggle for non-negotiable position, never to negotiate with those that make of repression a way of life and make of repression a normality in the regime. I'm sure the sooner the better, in any case, since you are doing the right thing. The others are on the bad side of the history. They will lose, you will win. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the Honorable John Bereko, former Speaker of the Parliament from the United Kingdom. And thank you, Mr. Minister Frattini, for joining us today. What is important in your remarks is your agreement on the need for a right policy, which focuses on human rights vis-à-vis the regime in Iran. Now, with the appointment of Raisi, whose record is filled with suppression and execution, it is more necessary. This regime has gone after nuclear weapons for a long time. It was the Iranian resistance's revelations in 2002 that showed the world the mullahs are after the bomb. So continuing to negotiate and dealing with this regime will only prolong further suppression and execution in Iran and pose a serious threat to global peace and security.
I send you greetings, Madam Rajari, as I do to the people of Iran, to our friends in Ashra 3, and to dignitaries gathered here for this event. It is a privilege to join you all for this year's Free Iran Global Summit. We gather, of course, at a critical and decisive time in Iran's history. You know, in a democracy, people like me campaign enthusiastically and publicly in the streets, encouraging people to go out, use your vote. I say to them, make your choice about the government of your country. It is your birthright to do so. It's not a luxury. It is an important civil right and civil liberty. Alas, the people of Iran have no such civil liberty. They were not given a choice, but they made their choice very clear indeed. When the time came, their choice was a resounding national boycott of the regime's phony election. I say, well done, my friends in Iran. I salute you. As my friend Mariam said, the people showed to the Iranian dictators and to the world that they want real change, genuine change, and not a masquerade of statesmen. You know, we're reminded, especially today, of Madam Rajari's 10-point plan for the future of Iran, which encompasses the democratic aspirations of the people and guarantees the realization of their long-standing desire for civil liberty and for the democratic process. It is no coincidence that women of all ages are in the vanguard of this popular resistance movement against the regime. I admire the role women are taking and the courage they demonstrate in so doing. For world leaders and the international community, this summit, with thousands in attendance, reflects, you know, only a small portion of the strong support the NCRI and the President has among the Iranian people and worldwide. My friends, the time has come to recognize this democratic alternative and popular movement as it marches, it certainly marches to victory for a free Iran. I stand with you, men and women of Iran, and support you until the day when we can gather to rejoice for the final celebration in Tehran, the capital of a free and democratic nation. Thank you.
Verehrte liebe Frau Präsidentin Rajavi, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, liebe Freunde von Ashraf 3. Diese große Konferenz, in der ich gegenwärtig, wenn auch nur digital teilnehme, findet in einem Land statt, wo sie endlich zu etwas mehr Ruhe gekommen sind. Aber wir müssen uns keine Illusionen machen. Im Iran herrschen Gender-Apartheid, brutale Verfolgung von Andersdenken, Angst vor religiösem und staatlichen Extremismus. Toleranz ist eine große Errungenschaft der menschlichen Zivilisation und der tolerante Islam bereichert die internationale Gemeinschaft. Der tolerante Islam ist eine unverzichtbare Basis für friedliche Völkerverständigung, aber auch für Gleichstellung von Mann und Frau, gerade in der islamischen Welt. Das ist es, was unsere Bewegung verkörpert. Sie will den Frieden, die Befreiung der Menschen vor Verfolgung und Tod, vor Flucht und Vertreibung. Wir arbeiten für eine starke Menschheit, in der niemand hungert und Angst vor Schrecken ständig erlebt. Das Volk will teilhaben, teilnehmen, Verantwortung teilen, gemeinsam aufbauen, unsere Welt, das heißt den Planeten retten. Jedoch die Herrschaft hat sich in 40 Jahren trotz immer wieder neuer Versuche, Appelle und Resolutionen nicht geändert. Sie scheut und verdrängt Veränderungen, die so dringlich und unverzichtbar für das Volk, die Menschen sind. Aber es gibt Alternativen. Ja, sie beinhalten Widerstand und Neuanfang. Ein Mut, den die große Organisation der Präsidentin Mariam Rajavi mit ihrem 10-Punkte-Plan entwickelt hat und lebt. Es ist der 10-Punkte-Plan für ein freies, gleichberechtigtes, säkulares und atomfreies Iran. Das ist die zentrale Hoffnung für alle, wieder frei und selbstbestimmt leben zu können. Kehren wir doch zurück zu den 4 Weltreligionen, die sich wechselseitig anerkennen, nicht nur in Berlin, sondern überall. Dazu gehört ein moderater, aufgeklärter Islam. Die fundamentalistische Auslegung hat genug Schaden angerichtet. Sie muss ein Ende haben. Kehren wir zurück zu der Hoffnung, die die 4 Weltreligionen aufbauen. Eine Welt, in der Mädchen und Jungen, Brüder und Schwestern, Gläubige und Atheisten nicht mehr vom Teheran bis Bandar Abbas weinen und leiden müssen. Sie sollten in einer Welt leben, wo sie sich frei entfalten und ihr Leben gestalten können. Und dies wird nur möglich sein, wenn wir eine solche Alternative unterstützen, die heute hier an unserer Seite ist. Das ist eine Chance und diese sollten wir nutzen. Die iranische Widerstandsbewegung unter Leitung von Frau Rajavi hat diese wertvolle Basis geschaffen. In einem opferreichen Kampf gegen die frauenfeindliche Mullah-Diktatur hat sich die Alternative bewusst auf das Prinzip der Gleichstellung von Mann und Frau positioniert und fokussiert. Gleichberechtigung in der politischen Führung ist das entscheidende Kriterium. Um die fundamentalistische Diktatur außer Gefecht zu setzen, muss zuerst das Gedankengut dieses reaktionäre Wesen in die Knie zwingen. Dafür kämpft Mariam Rajavi mit einer ganzen Reihe emanzipierter Frauen. So sind die Frauen nicht nur Kraft des Wandels, sondern auch die Kraft des Aufbaus für die Zukunft. Frauen sind stark und leben Verantwortung. Und für diese gehört die Zukunft auch des Irans. Ich hoffe sehr auf diesen freien Iran, der uns immer näher rückt. Und danke für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit und viel Umsetzungskraft dieser Konferenz.